Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Home and Arrows, which actually is going to be changing here soon. We're going to do a little bit of a rebrand coming up, just with the new chapter of life that I'm in and that we're in together. Today's video is, I think I'm going to call it explanations and confessions, and there's a few reasons for that. We have some really great ideas that we feel like the Lord has given us for the channel. But before we can move into all of that new stuff, we feel like we need to revisit some foundational things about our relationship and how we got together and why we got together. And
just deal with the whole aspect of divorce and remarriage. It's a very serious thing. We both have grown up in church our entire lives. We believe in God. We believe in the Bible. We believe that the Bible is authoritative. And so dealing with this subject we feel like is important, because
we don't want to gloss over what led us to this point and what's brought us to this new chapter that we're entering. And I think the main thing that happened was I received a comment on the Q&A fiance video, and when I read that comment, I thought, wow, her comment was super valid.
Yeah,
and it really stuck with me. And so this comment is kind of what's led to us doing this video. And her comment was this. She said, I don't have other social media, so this video really seemed to come out of left field. And she's talking about the fiance one.
Yeah.
No judgment here, just lots of confusion. I've really appreciated your videos and genuinely hope things go well for your family as you seek His will, but I think you have to understand that for your followers who are not on YouTube, this is a lot to take in. And so I kind of thought, if she has those feelings, then a bunch of other viewers probably have the same feelings.
Yeah.
And so literally, I don't want to take a lot of time to do this, but I do feel like it's important for us in the next few minutes to be really transparent and really vulnerable about our journey and how we came together. And we said, as Dustin and I were talking about this earlier, we don't owe any kind of public explanation for our divorces, for how we got together. We answer to God and God alone, but we do feel like He's called us to make our stories, not our stories, but our lives a little bit public, in the sense of we have a desire to encourage people who've walked the journey and the paths that we've walked. And because of that, it requires sometimes a little bit of vulnerability and transparency. And there are going to be people who probably
they're still not going to agree with us no matter what we say, and that's fine. And a lot of ways in which we want this channel to help people, not just to sit there and be content creators, but to help people, because we have both been through something really tough and we want this to help people. But in order to do that, we did, after some prayer and thought, we did feel it was important to lay some foundations and tackle some things that may raise questions, so that you can decide, are these two people we want to continue following or not? If you don't, you move on. If you do, awesome.
All right, so I think we'll start with a little bit of your story.
Yeah, my story is a little longer back, because it started in 2015. I kissed my wife and kids goodbye that morning, and came back and they were gone, and half the house had been taken, like the stuff. And that started a very bitter process of divorce. Come to find out, she left because she was pregnant with someone else's kid. So that sucked, and it was what it was. But that's my story. Very long story in a very short nutshell, and that's what led to my divorce.
Yeah, and in my story, my ex and I got married in 2004, and from the very beginning, it was a very difficult and rough marriage. But in 2013, there was an event that happened that changed and altered the entire course of the last 6 years of our marriage. And when that event was discovered, a couple other things became uncovered, some other things that had been transpiring. And so my desire at the time was that our family stay together. I didn't want our family broken up. I had 5 children with him. I had just had my 5th. He was only like 3 or 4 months old when the first major event, kind of unraveled. And so I fought. I wanted to fight for the marriage. And I have no regrets in doing that, because I can stand here today and say, man, for the last 6 years, God, we gave you every opportunity to make that work. And so fast forward from 2013 to August of 2019, something else happened, and which led to us becoming officially separated in September 5th of 2019. Now, even though legally we were separated as of September 5th, between September and I remember telling the Lord till January, it was like, God, the last 6 years I've tried. I still want to give you time to work a miracle. I still want to give you the next like 4-ish months to do something. I was so desperate for things to work out. So in those 4 months, we were separated, but like he would still come over for dinner. We'd still go do a couple random things together as a family. Not a lot, but like he still came to the house. He had moved out, but we would still do some things as a family. Well, him and I sat down in the beginning of January, and we had a conversation, and in that conversation, I realized things are just not going to change. And so from January on, I lived 100% as a single woman, as a single mom.
And I think it's important to note that she didn't make the decision to continue along with it all without the talk, without speaking to pastors, counselors.
Oh yeah, I had had lots of counsel in my life, from the event that happened in 2013 to this one. Between all that time, I had multiple pastors and counselors saying, you know, Shirley, biblically, you have every right to move on and to get a divorce, to be divorced. And now, even though I had that ability, I saw a lawyer within that September to January time frame. It was my very first time seeing a lawyer, and then after that, I actually never in my entire divorce process retained a lawyer. He did all of that, and he took care of all of that.
Not me.
Not you. My ex did. Now, I don't recommend, if you're going through the divorce process, to not have a lawyer.
Nope,
that wasn't a good idea on my part. That made some things difficult, but I can honestly sit here today and say that God was faithful, and despite my probably massive lack of wisdom, he covered me in the process. Okay, so that takes us.
That's how both of us ended up in a situation where we were living out a divorced single parent life. So
right.
that's that block.
That's that. So there's January, where everything was definitely like we were on the path to divorce, and I had been told for the longest time within that process that September 5th of 2020, my divorce was going to be final. So starting in January, like that was the end. I was just trying to make it to September 5th. And June. So now let's fast forward to June of 2020.
Which is when we met.
Which is when Dustin and I met. And so for 6 months, you know, I was grieving that divorce, and I was moving on and becoming completely independent. Met him and I caught up on Facebook together.
Because we had gone to the same church, which we had mentioned in our
We'd gone to the
video.
same church, but we like did not know each other.
Yeah.
So we became Facebook friends in June, and in June, Dustin and I went on like three or four walks.
Three walks.
Or something. And it was just one of those things where it was like purely platonic, so pure. It was one of those things where we'd walked similar paths and journeys. And I love what a pastor I heard said, when you meet someone and you can say, oh, me too, like there's just this natural connection that happens. And that's what happened with Dustin and I. It was like, oh man, me too, and you too, and you can understand
and both of us had a big heart for parenting and parenting our kids through the divorce process, and we talked so much about that, and that was really a huge chunk of our discussions, was just how to parent our kids through this.
Yeah, we just had a lot of similarities. However, we both, if we were honest, we could say, even though everything was so like entirely pure, that there was like an underlying attraction kind of connection that happened. And
in late June, I was at a worship service and I was just praying, you know, typical worship service, just kind of having my moment with God, and I just felt this really strong in the spirit through the very appearance of evil. So I messaged Shirley, I think we still have that text, where I just basically said, hey, we haven't done anything wrong. I said that. I said, but there's just an undertone, and I think that it's really unwise for us to continue hanging out, like going on walks. While they were out so in public, just chatting about divorce life, single parenthood, two adults, I just felt that given our roles, I was a worship leader, she was heavily involved in church.
You felt a conviction about that.
I did. So we stopped.
So
we stopped
fine.
Completely.
And that's what the Holy Spirit does, and he's so good to do that. He's so good to speak to us and be like, hey, kind of get in line this way. And I so appreciate Dustin feeling the Lord leading him in that direction and quickly like obeying and sending me a text saying like, no more.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is we continued to text. Neither of us felt a conviction at all about texting. It was completely pure and friendly.
It was honestly the appearance of evil part was what stuck out to me, and us hanging out one-on-one, even fine, could have the appearance, depending on who was looking or who was interested in looking, of something that it wasn't. So we did continue texting.
So we continue to text friendship.
I don't regret that to this day.
Yeah, neither of us have any convictions about that. But and then the few times that we did see each other between June and September, it was always in a group, family, friends setting, and it wasn't often, but there were always like other people around. Never again was it just like him and I one-on-one. So we fast forward that to say this, because we want to be completely vulnerable, transparent, and I could never just sit here like it doesn't even feel good to sit here and say like nothing else ever happened, because one small thing did happen, and that's where we're going to be vulnerable.
And I wouldn't even call it small thing. It was a thing that happened, and I think to be authentic and honest about it is a key part of Christianity. And so we had a huge my friends, and some of my siblings. I have 6 siblings, and they're all adults. We get a beach house, and friends and family all go down, and we celebrated for 2 or 3 days, just the adults, because a lot of us have kids. And my sister, unbeknownst to me, invited Shirley, because Shirley had told my sisters and whatnot that her divorce was ending September 5th, and they were like, hey, you've been through a lot, it's over now, it's a new chapter, why don't you come join us at the beach? I had no idea.
And that's huge. So I'm here, I've been sitting here for months thinking that on September 5th my divorce was going to be finalized, and I was looking forward to this beach trip. I was picturing myself on the beach with my Bible and my journal, because I knew and because I knew that even though it was something that I was looking forward to happening, I also was not looking forward to that day.
Because it's still a failed marriage.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still a failed marriage, and so I knew that I was going to be feeling some extreme feelings of both like joy, but also possible deep sadness.
Yeah.
That this was the story of my life. And so here I am looking forward to September 5th, going to the beach. It was also my birthday, and so just the timing seemed great. And a few days before September 5th, I decided to finally make one-on-one contact with my ex's lawyer. I had not done that to this point. I was taking all of my ex's word for everything. And so I called his lawyer, and his lawyer said, oh yeah, this is just days before the beach trip. He's like, oh yeah, your divorce is not going to be final by September 5th. There's still some things left that you need to sign. So I go to the beach trip, and exactly a day after my divorce that I thought was going to be finalized on the 5th, on September 6th, Dustin and I met on the beach just randomly. We didn't plan to meet on the beach. We just happened to meet on the beach.
Because we were all down there,
and we kissed on the beach.
And for the record, there's a lot of debate. You could have one side of the equation be like, oh, whatever, that's such a minor thing. Then you have another side of the equation that's, oh, wow, hey, your divorce wasn't legally signed by a judge yet, so this was a huge deal. Here's where we stand. We believe that for us, where we were, what God had called us to do, what God was talking, forget all the noise of people's opinions, that was a mistake. It was a mistake. We wish it hadn't happened, but it was a mistake. And we moved on from it. We apologized to each other, and we moved on with life.
We worked through it with God. Here's the thing. The Bible says that a righteous man falls down 7 times, but he gets back up again. And so that's what we did. We said, okay, well, from this point on, now what can we do to make sure that never happens again? And I can honestly sit here, and it feels so good to be able to say, I can sit here and say we stayed faithful and
We
honored
didn't even
God.
hang out.
We decided not to even hang out until then. My divorce finally became final at the end of October, and that is when Dustin finally felt released to ask me on our first date. And
Yep.
so the divorce was signed by a lawyer,
By
made
the judge.
legally,
By the
by the judge, by the, see, I don't even,
She don't know how any
I'm
of this
terrible
works.
about this process. It was signed by the judge, it was final, he finally felt released to ask me on our first date. And
A few days later, after she had told me that, and we went on our first
and
date.
we went on our first date.
And the rest is history. And that's how we came together and started dating. And that was, I think, our first, when we really decided we were going to step forward publicly and officially say, hey, we're dating. It wasn't long after the divorce. And, you know, people can have their opinions about that, and that's fine.
But everything we've literally just said is exactly all and how it all went.
And so November 1st, we start that, and we just start the process. And at that point, the plan was to move really slow and kind of just take our time. We have 7 kids between us, 7, which is a lot. And so we had the plan to just take it slow. And unfortunately, in January,
another event happened.
And we're saying event to protect and honor the people, whether we agree with them or not.
Because there are 2 sides to every story.
There are 2 sides, and I
sharing our
guarantee
side.
you, we're sharing our side, but I guarantee you, you talk to another side, they'll have a totally different view of it, and that's fine.
Possibly, yeah.
And that's fine. It's not a big deal. But we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty details. And so an event happened that affected her jobs. She felt like she was put in a position where she had an ultimatum given to her, and she at first decided to kind of go along with it to save her job, and then she decided,
well, I was sitting in the meeting, and I'm a single mom in the middle of a pandemic, and when I was given the options that I was given, and I'm sorry it's so vague, guys, but really just trying to be honoring here, but at the same time tell our story. I was given the options, and I decided to stay and keep my jobs. And then I came home, and I remember texting Dustin and telling him what transpired, and I just didn't feel right. And you know, when you have a relationship with the Holy Spirit, like he is good to speak to us and to lead us and to guide us. And I really felt like it was a Holy Spirit thing happening, saying, no, Shirley, that wasn't the right decision. And I went to Dustin and I said, hey, will you pray about this separately and independently of me? And then can we come back together and see what we both felt in prayer? And interestingly enough, we took the day to do that, to pray on our own. And we came back together, and I told Dustin, I said, I actually feel like God is saying, choose this path. And he said, Shirley, well, I can confirm that for you. Like I was feeling the same thing.
and it was very important for me to not really give my voice, given the particulars of the situation, to really stay out of it as much as I could and know where she was going. And then after she had made those decisions and had identified what she felt was wrong and right and so on, that then I could give my opinion, and I was in agreement with her. But that was a lot, because
so I resigned from
her
my
job,
sources of
income,
two of my main sources of income
and
as a single mom.
you know, she felt that was her only choice in that situation. And so
I felt like it was the right choice.
So that then kicked off something in me on my end that she didn't even fully know about until we came and talked about it a couple days later. I said, okay, given this situation, I need to either step out of the situation,
this relationship,
our relationship, step out of it completely and let her focus, because there were details in it that informed that thought process. I either need to step out of the situation completely, or I need to step in. And what that took was evaluating the relationship. Do I think that this is going to last? If not, or I'm not sure, then I needed to jet.
Right. You needed to say, God, is this what you have for me or not? Right. I need to know now.
And so in that process, and talking to my counselor and whatnot, and some other things that happened at my church, conversations I had at my church, I said, you know what? This is it. This is it for me. And from that day on, I think January 12th, we just moved forward. We had the conversations, and we just moved forward. And because of that, moved a lot quicker, because you got to understand, I do okay for myself, and you got a mother of 5 who doesn't have an income. Her only other income was her Etsy shop, and
I was teaching for VIP Kid, the Chinese children.
And doing some teaching, so this is very, very little income.
So that happens in January, and our relationship progressed very quickly
to September 18th.
to the point which we got married, publicly. We call it our public marriage.
Because we had gotten married a little bit
We had
earlier
gotten
than
married sooner privately than that. Thankfully, guys, I lost those 2 jobs. And here's the thing. I've always thought, God, wherever you guide, you're going to provide. And I felt like God led me in that decision to lay down those 2 jobs. And I'll tell you what, he completely provided, to the point where it wasn't even up until the month before our marriage where Dustin had to step in and assist financially in any kind of way.
That was really cool for me to watch, how from January to
August-ish, the end of August
was the first time that I helped in any kind of financial capacity, which is just such a testament to God and how he provided, because I thought I was going to have to start stepping in way sooner, and she was like, no, let's just see what happens. And
God's been so good. And so there are so many things. Maybe we should make a whole video on it. We call it God's fingerprints in this entire year of our story, of how God, when I say miraculous things, you guys, where God showed up miraculously to show himself strong in our relationship. It's just, I just love our story so much for that reason. But anyways, so some people were like, why did everything happen so fast? And hopefully that gives you guys a better understanding. Some clarity to our story.
Life has complexities, and you just deal with it every step at a time. I know every one of you has your own life where you had situations where you had to deal with it, where people outside wouldn't have understood.
Right.
That's a little bit of a glimpse into why, and honestly, I can say this, we didn't need to give this. We are giving this only because we felt God laid it on our hearts.
Every story is completely complex and unique to its own story. And so we make no apologies for how anything has transpired, because we legitimately can sit here and say before God that we felt like we followed him every step of the way.
Doesn't mean we didn't make mistakes. Doesn't mean there weren't things that we could have handled differently. 100%.
Done better, right?
100%. We'll never deny that. And so that's really the gist of what we wanted to do with this video, because we just want to kind of clear the air, give some, because I think that comment was super valid, and whoever you are, you said it with such grace.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I think that was really awesome. And we always welcome self-evaluation. It's such an important thing. And given what we want this channel to do, because we're not just talking about big family, we want to talk about single mamas, single dads, post-divorce. I mean,
remarriage,
all of that is
blending.
A lot.
It's
a lot, and there's not a lot of resources. I looked. There's not a lot of resources, because in the Christian community, divorce is just not supposed to happen. Well, it does. And there are actually situations biblically that you can. And I know that's a debate. I know. And even if you agree that divorce can happen, you definitely can't get remarried. I know all of that. I spent so much time in different theological studies and all of that. I know so much. So I get it. And maybe we're not a channel for you, but our hope is to help people who are walking through these paths, because they are hard, and it is so difficult to hold your identity and lean on Christ when you can feel so much shame within this topic and within this kind of subculture.
And when you feel like you've lost your identity. I was a wife, and now I'm not a wife anymore. So literally, guys, our hearts here are simply to encourage. And we're looking forward to doing that. We have a rebrand coming. We're having a channel name change happening. And we have some video ideas of things we want to cover and talk about. So good thing we got all this junk out of the way. And if you decide to keep hanging with us and following, we'd love to have you along on our journey.
So excited for the future.
Until next time, guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.